Howdy folks, my name's Jeff Sailors and I've been fortunate to have led a life of amazing adventures in the outdoors. I've spent pert near 50 years now packing horses and mules in the wilderness, and I've left footprints in some of the most amazing wildlands in the country. I've built power lines for 25 years, rode in Wild West shows, spent 9 years handling buffalo on a ranch, and I've been an extra in over a dozen Hollywood movies. I'm a master horsehair hitcher. My work can be seen around the world in private collections, museums, and coffee table books. And now with my gal Patricia, we own an art gallery here in Colorado. Now, I've been telling these stories for years around the campfire and decided it was time to start sharing them with everyone. So sit back and get ready for some great stories about the West. Afternoon, folks. I'm going to tell some stories today. I got 50 years gathering worth of stories in the great outdoors in the Rocky Mountains mostly, and most of them are hunting stories. There's other stuff, but I don't want to get a bunch of hate mail from you anti-hunters. If you anti-hunters want to have a discourse, let's talk about science, winter range, populations, habitat improvement, and those things. But if you just want to hear some really entertaining adventures from the Rocky Mountains, stick around. First story I'm going to tell you is about a three-legged bear that chewed me up pretty good. So sit down and let's get to talking. I was a pretty serious bear hunter back in the 70s and 80s up in southwest Montana. I hunted all over the state, but the southwest part was my favorite. I hunted the Absaroka, the Bridgers, the Gallatin. I had a favorite little drainage up in the Gallatin called Trail Creek, and boy, we took a lot of bears out of that country over the years. And so one spring morning I headed up there, and first light, spring, beautiful day, and got up on this favorite ridge, and right off the bat I saw a black bear. And I watched him for a while, make sure it wasn't a female, and ended up shooting him. And he'd dropped just across an old Forest Service fence, so I walked up to the wire and couldn't get the gate open. It'd been closed for years, I guess. So I laid my gun down against the wire, stepped through the fence, and dragged that bear up under a big old ponderosa pine tree where I could work on him. And I'm sure I brushed the dirt off his coat and posed him nice and gave him the honor he deserved, because it's no small thing to take a life like that, of anything. So I looked at him for a minute, and I walked back over to that fence and reached over the wire and grabbed my rifle by the barrel. And just as I turned around, I heard a noise, and I looked up, and here's this big old brown bear at 27 paces, and there's an old pine deadfall laying there, and he was standing up on his front legs looking at me, and boy, the minute we made eye contact, here he come, right at me. I'm always amazed how fast bears can run, and I've seen 1,000 of them. But when they're coming right at you, they go twice as fast. And here he come with his ears flat and his head low, and I knew he wasn't bluffing. I just had time to shoot from the hip. And I shot and hit him in the chest, and pretty sure I shattered his shoulder, but his momentum carried him into me, and he come up running, and he hit me in the right hip and just knocked me flat. I started down the hill, and I come up and jacked another round in, and I shot him in the ass going down the hill. I was kind of freaked out about this. You don't have time to get frightened when something like that happens. This survival gear, I call it, just kicks in and you do the right thing. And then when it's over, you got time to be scared, and you're shaking and slobbering. And I mean to tell you, it freaked me out. So anyway, I eased on down the hill looking for this bear, and wanted to get a couple more loads in my gun, and I'm shaking so bad I couldn't hardly get those rounds in there. And I ease on down the hill, and I don't know if he's alive or dead, so I'm taking my time. And about every third step or every other step, I'd hear this weird squeaking sound. And man, I'm looking around, because I'm pretty freaked out about how this is all going. And after about 10 of them squeaky steps, I stopped and I looked down, and my whole boot's full of blood. And evidently when that bear come up running and hit me in the hip, he reached around behind me and ripped open my hind leg about that far, and my whole calf muscle was exposed, and all this yellow fat come out, and it's just disgusting. The fat in a human being, I wasn't aware, looked like curdled cottage cheese, and pants are soaked with blood, and boots got blood coming out the top. And I ease on down the hill, and I find him, and he was dead. And rolled him over, and he's got a hind leg missing. He's a three-legged bear, and I didn't even notice that when he was charging at me. And again, I took a moment to honor him and brush him off. And it's like I can't stress enough how much you have to honor these animals when you kill one. So I get to looking at that hind leg, and part of that calloused heel pad that they walk on, had drawn all the way up to his hock joint. And when I skinned him open, I found all kinds of bullet fragments. There was lead and copper, so I'm sure the leg got infected, and he chewed it off up to the knee, and part of that heel pad had drawn up in there. It was just full of bullet fragments. So I don't know if he was still pissed at being shot in the foot or what, but he definitely had it in for me. So anyway, I opened him up and make sure the meat was going to cool. And spring bear meat is the best. It's one of my favorite meats. Fall bear is okay, but it's got a lot of fat in it, and it'll taste greasy. But spring bear, oh, it's just heaven. So anyway, I get the three-legged bear opened up and cooling down. And I go back up the hill to the first bear, and I start working on him. And all of a sudden, I hear another noise, and I look up, and here comes this great big black boar. And I mean, he was a big one from Montana. They got a short growing season up there, so they don't weigh 400 or 500 pounds, but he was a big old boy. He's hauling ass out through the timber, and I'm sitting there thinking, what in the world intimidated that big old boy? So I'm standing there with the rifle looking around, and up rears this big old brown cinnamon-colored bear, and she's rolling her head on her shoulders and blowing snot and popping her teeth. Sounds like a 22 going off. And all I could think is, it's a dang grizzly. And I know you're not supposed to run from bears, but I just took off down that mountain. And that gate I couldn't get open earlier, I must have just blown right through it or jumped it. I don't know what I did. But so I get down the hill and I roll that three-legged bear out in the open, because I figure if that grizzly's tracking me, he's going to stop and smell that three-legged bear. So I laid there shaking for a little bit, and the grizzly never showed up. So now I kind of got a dilemma. I got one bear tag and I got two dead bears, and I'm not real sure what to do about it. But anyway, I get the first one all skinned out and the meat boned and put in meat bags and get him down to the truck and come back up and take care of the black bear. And first one I'd shot, and get them all taken care of, meat boned and ready to go. And well, it was just killing me what that bear was. So that evening I went back up there and sat on that ridge just at dusk, and here she come. And she wasn't a grizzly. She was just a big old brown bear. And she kept looking behind her in the tall grass as she come out in this little open park, and I knew she had cubs. And pretty soon she got out in some shorter grass, and here come these two little young-of-the-year cubs, no bigger than puppies. And that's why she'd run that big bear off, that big black boar. So anyway, I got to watch that bear for the next 15, 16, maybe 17 years. And she changed colors as time went on. And of course, I try not to ever shoot female bears, and she was a bear factory. Over those years, she went from a blonde cinnamon to a dark chocolate. And every 3 years, she'd have at least twins and 1 year triplets. And last time I saw that bear, and she had to be pushing 20 years old by then. And she had a blonde cub, a black cub, and a little red cub with her. I don't know whatever come of her. I'm sure she died old age, because that was kind of a remote place, but I sure loved that old bear. Now, I just told you the story about that three-legged bear that chewed up my hind leg a little bit. Actually, these are his claws right here. He was a big old bear, and I never did anything with the hide. I tanned it, but I never did anything because he only had 3 legs. And these top 10 claws are off that first bear I shot that morning, the black one. So I got about pretty near 50 years worth of these kind of stories. If you guys want to hear about the man-eating grizzly here, just hit that subscribe button and follow these stories, and we'll get around to those stories down the road.